So while Prosan was heading to Moscow to chat with Putin, guess what? The Russian president was totally MIA. He'd skipped town and was holed up in his fancy palace fortress out in Valai.
To shoot down at least about 11 Ukrainian drones.
This isn't the first time either. Remember when Ukraine launched a drone attack on the Russian capital? Yep, you guessed it. Putin was nowhere near the action. He was chilling in his posh palace. Now here's where things get juicy. All the deets about this extravagant palace came to light thanks to Alexei Navalny, a well-known Russian opposition leader and anti-corruption champ who's not afraid to speak out against Putin. He dropped a bombshell YouTube video called Putin's Palace, the story of the world's biggest bribe, and it blew up online. The video went viral, racking up a mind-boggling 133 million views. In this eye-opening exposé, Navalny unveiled some shocking details about Putin that had everyone talking. This sprawling estate turned into a poster child for corruption and excess, showing how Putin allegedly used dodgy tactics to pile up wealth and live like a king, all while regular Russians struggled. Honestly, it's like a mini-country tucked away inside Russia. But hold on, this isn't just any palace, it's one of the most heavily guarded spots on the planet. After the recent Ukrainian invasion and all those aerial attacks, security has cranked up to a level that's just wild. So, let's dive into what Navalny revealed that's made Putin squirm. Why is this palace dubbed the symbol of corruption? And what makes it one of the toughest fortresses to get into in the world? Let's kick things off on Russia's southern coast, where the beautiful Black Sea meets the breathtaking landscapes of Gelendzhik. Here lies the grand and mysterious estate known as Vladimir Putin's palace. But hold up, this isn't just any old house. It's a massive symbol of wealth and power. This place is seriously secretive and one of the most heavily guarded spots around. Believe it or not, it's 39 times bigger than Monaco. Yep, you heard that right. It's not just a cozy cottage or a country home, it's more like an entire city or even a mini-kingdom. Imagine huge fences, its own port, a private security team, a church, winding pathways, a no-fly zone, and even a border checkpoint. It's like a little country all on its own within Russia. At the center of this mini-empire is its sole ruler, Vladimir Putin. He loves spending time here with his family and billionaire buddies. If you could see the true size of Putin's palace, you'd be blown away by how enormous it really is. It's just hard to wrap your head around. Now here's the kicker. There's never been a legit sale of this palace. It's all a bit of a magic trick designed to look like it was sold through fake transactions and a big media push. The truth is, the only person who's ever owned this grand estate from day one is Vladimir Putin himself. But wait, this Black Sea palace isn't Putin's only fancy property. He's got 4 other palaces scattered across Russia and beyond, including some swanky spots in Sochi, Valai, and even the Kremlin, plus a luxurious residence in Marbella. Out of these 4 known palaces, the Black Sea Palace is the biggest, most extravagant, and definitely the most controversial. Recently, news has surfaced that Putin's Valai Palace has turned into a fortress, all thanks to a rise in Ukrainian drone strikes. Satellite images from May 6, 2024 show some serious security upgrades, with multiple Pantsir S-1 air defense systems and an S-400 system now surrounding the estate. According to the Institute for the Study of War, ISW, these added defenses are a direct response to Ukraine's ongoing drone attacks, which have made Moscow focus on protecting high-value targets like Putin's palace. The images also reveal a new Pantsir S-1 system on Ria Banova Island just near the estate, which boosts the area's defenses. However, all this focus on Valai has left other places, like St. Petersburg, a bit vulnerable, according to the Russian Telegram channel VCHKPI. Now back to the security at Putin's palace. There are reports of a shortage of equipment to detect and intercept smaller air targets. Rumors from independent Russian media suggest that Putin actually shares this heavily guarded retreat with his partner, Alina Kabayeva, and their young kids. Ever since those juicy PRX revelations, the estate has been closed to visitors and is protected by federal security forces, with serious penalties for anyone who dares to break the rules. The first air defense system at Valai was spotted back in January 2023, and since then, a full defensive ring has been set up. The exclusion zone around the palace is now larger than both the Isle of Wight and Malta combined. showing just how important and protected it really is. We'll dig into the details of Putin's 4 palaces in the upcoming video, exploring each of his impressive residences. But let's head back to the grandest of them all, the Black Sea Palace. If you get a peek inside, you might start to wonder about Putin's state of mind. The luxury and wealth on display are so over the top that it feels like he's got a serious obsession with it all. The palace doesn't just flaunt riches, it tells a story all on its own. It's crystal clear that Putin has a serious obsession with living the high life. But that's not all. Let's dive into the juicy details about the massive corruption tied to both him and this palace. First, though, let's take a look at the sheer size and grandeur of this place. Documents reveal that Putin's palace is actually the biggest private home in Russia, covering a jaw-dropping 17,619 square meters, which is nearly 200,000 square feet. To give you a better idea, that's roughly the size of 3 football fields squished together. For ages, people were scratching their heads over the odd shape of this enormous estate, which looked a bit like a peculiar hill from a distance. It wasn't until Alexei Navalny checked out some old satellite images that the mystery started to unravel. What he found was pretty shocking. Underneath that hill lies a massive rectangular structure with rounded corners, about the size of a hockey rink. Can you believe it? They've basically buried a grand palace underground, and it's the height of a 5-story building. The whole place has this bunker-like vibe that's hard to ignore. On the estate, you'll also find a charming church that adds a touch of calm to all the opulence. There's even a gigantic greenhouse covering 2,500 square meters, or around 27,000 square feet, where about 40 gardeners work their magic to keep the plants looking their best. But wait, there's more. The estate features an impressive 80-meter-long bridge. In any other part of Russia, a bridge this size would be a big deal, but here, it's just a practical addition. This bridge leads to a tea house, which is an incredible 27,000 square feet. It's the perfect spot for enjoying a relaxing cup of tea, making it a standout feature of this extraordinary place. There are also some utility buildings and a dormitory where the lower-level staff, like security guards and shift workers, live. Right next to those is the headquarters building, the brains of the entire estate where the main managers keep everything running smoothly. Oh, and here's a cool fact. There's even a special tunnel built by the same experts who design metro systems. This unique tunnel has 2 major purposes. It offers an easy route to the sea and provides a safe escape in case of emergencies, like a war or an attack. Talk about being prepared. And get this, the tunnel has a secret hidden feature. If you look closely, you'll spot a small door in one of the pictures. It leads to a tasting room cleverly disguised as part of a mountain. Inside, there's a huge window that shows off breathtaking views of the sea. This isn't just any old balcony, it's a secure underground space where you can chill out safely. Now, the area beneath this colossal palace complex spans a whopping 68 hectares, but the entire estate is actually about 100 times larger. Right next door is a massive 7,000-hectare plot of land owned by the FSB, which is Russia's security agency. Talk about an empire. In September 2020, this entire area was leased to the company that owns the palace, and the rental will last until 2068. This land is used for all sorts of exclusive activities like research, education, hunting, and fishing, making the estate even more special. The main reason for leasing this massive plot, which is 3.5 times larger than the nearby town of Gelendzhik, is to create a protective barrier around Putin's palace. The 7,000-hectare area surrounding the palace is under the control of the FSB, Russia's security agency. Oh, and it gets better. No one can get near Putin's palace from the sky either. There's an official no-fly zone called URP 1116 that covers the area. Controlling this no-fly zone is a bit like saying either the United Nations or the FSB's border directorate is in charge. You catch the sarcasm there, right? Now let's peek inside the palace, starting with the basement level, where Putin has a whole range of luxurious features. There's a spa area that includes a massage room, a beauty salon, a spa capsule, and even a hairdresser for all his pampering needs. For water relaxation, there's a massive pool, plus saunas, hammams, and various bathing bowls. But that's not all. The basement also has spaces for staff, including doctors, managers, and cooks. There are even dressing rooms for waiters and separate shops for meat, fish, vegetables, baking, and egg processing. One of the more quirky rooms is an 18-square-meter dirt warehouse. Then there's a cocktail hall that leads to a home cinema, a tasting room, and a wine cellar. Moving up to the first floor of the palace, you'll find the main areas designed for pure luxury and grand entertaining. The spacious halls are perfect for hosting guests and showing off a bit. There are elegant spaces like a reading room and a music lounge, providing plenty of options for entertainment and relaxation. As you head up to the second floor, you'll discover a bunch of guest bedrooms, including Putin's private suite. This floor also features a lovely winter garden and several relaxation rooms. One of the rooms is simply labeled Small Dining Room, but the furniture is from Satariano, an ultra-exclusive Italian brand that specializes in custom pieces. You might be surprised to learn that one of the most expensive items in Putin's palace is a table that costs a whopping 43,149. Talk about luxury. At Putin's palace, a leather sofa will set you back an eye-watering 2 million rubles, which is about 2,540. The hallways feature slightly less extravagant sofas that still cost around 1.4 million rubles, probably meant for guests. It seems like Putin has a serious love for sofas. There are a whopping 47 of them scattered throughout his palace. One of the standout pieces is a table with a built-in bar that was purchased for 4 million rubles. There are also some more modest items, like a dressing table that costs 2 million rubles. Plus, there's a hookah bar and a huge swimming pool to support Putin's healthy lifestyle. On the second floor of the palace, where Putin's private quarters are, things really get luxurious. This isn't just any old bedroom, it's a lavish space that rivals the grandest homes in Europe. Putin's bedroom alone is a massive 60 square meters, or about 2,800 square feet, showcasing incredible design and unmatched opulence. Back in 2010, a St. Petersburg businessman named Sergei Kolesnikov made headlines when he published an open letter urging President Medvedev to take a stand against Putin's corruption. Kolesnikov, who was involved in the palace's construction, revealed a ton of details about the project, including where it was built, who funded it, and how offshore companies and bearer shares were used to keep everything under wraps. He even provided documents, contracts, and audio recordings of conversations between builders and sponsors. These revelations were some of the most significant and credible ever released. In the early 2000s, a guy named Nikolai Shamalov, a family friend of Putin and future matchmaker, approached a businessman named Pomed with a personal proposal from Putin. At that time, Putin had just been elected president and was on the lookout for ways to boost his income. The proposal was, unsurprisingly, drenched in corruption. Here's how it worked. Influential oligarchs like Abramovich and Morozov were asked to make hefty donations to Pomed. The plan was for Pomed to use this cash for medical purposes, like upgrading hospitals and buying new equipment. But of course there was a catch. About 35% of these donations were funneled into a secret offshore account. This offshore company was registered with bearer shares, meaning it wasn't officially registered under anyone's name. Whoever held the shares was considered the owner. From this offshore account, Shamalov, Gorov, and Kolesnikov each snagged 2% of the shares, while a whopping 94% went straight to Putin. In these shady dealings, Putin was often referred to as M. Ivanovich to keep things hush-hush. In 2005, Vladimir Kosin, who was head of the Presidential Property Management Department and a longtime buddy of Putin from his St. Petersburg days, signed an agreement for a new project in Gelendzhik. It gets even worse. Officially, it was all about creating a year-round children's sports and health camp. But let's be real, this was just a cover. The real plan was to build a lavish dacha, that's a fancy Russian cottage, instead. The company behind this operation was owned by three key players: Nikolai Shamalov, Dmitry Gorov, and Sergei Kolesnikov. At first, Rosinvest, the company involved, was juggling various investment projects. But things took a turn when Nikolai Shamalov, who was Putin's main contact and had the Gelendzhik Palace registered in his name, made a bold move. He ordered that all Rosinvest projects be put on hold, except for one: the palace. All available funds were redirected to constructing this massive, opulent estate. By this time, hundreds of millions of dollars had already been splashed out on the palace, and the final bill was expected to skyrocket to a whopping $1 billion. To handle the growing scandal and keep the public's attention from shifting, a clever scheme was hatched. The story was spun that the palace was bought by businessman Alexander Ponomarenko. Ponomarenko, a longtime buddy of Putin's from the judo scene and known for his real estate dealings, went along with this narrative. He even did several interviews where he claimed, "Yes, I bought this for myself. I plan to build a hotel here." To make things look even more convincing, he told journalists that he had purchased the palace from Shamalov for around $350 million, and added that the transaction was registered through a Cyprus offshore company. This whole strategy was aimed at keeping the real story under wraps while giving off the impression of a legit private deal. But when Navalny dug into the financial records of that offshore company, he uncovered a shocking detail. Looking at the 2011 records, it became clear that the palace was indeed purchased, but not for the reported $350 million. Nope. The actual purchase price was just a measly 350,000 rubles, or about $10,000 at the time, which is roughly the cost of a two-room apartment on the outskirts of Moscow. This whole deal turned out to be a total sham. No real money had actually changed hands. Instead, they just appointed a wealthy guy named Alexander Ponomarenko to be the supposed owner of the palace near Gelendzhik. The entire transaction was a cover-up to hide the true ownership. The offshore company that was listed as the official owner had a proxy named Ivan Katov representing it. In a twist of fate, Bolat Zakharov, who was the director of the palace's management company, later got a nice promotion from Putin to head the main public catering department for the presidential administration. Meanwhile, Tatiana Katova, who is married to Oleg Katov, the acting head of the Federal Security Service's military unit during the palace's construction, saw her husband's unit get a snazzy new name, the Department for the Operation of Property of State Security Bodies. This military unit was involved in the palace project as a so-called customer developer, showing just how tangled the palace's construction was with various levels of government and security services. But wait, there's more. In this complicated web of ownership, we have Elena Kulikova, the wife of Alexander Kulikov, who played a big role. Alexander Kulikov was the head of the B department of the Russian Presidential Security Service, responsible for building and managing residences for the president. Today, Kulikov is actually in charge of President Vladimir Putin's affairs. Ivan Katov, the proxy representing the offshore company that owned the palace, was just a young lawyer at the time, working for the firm Igorov Puginsky Afanasiev and Partners. Back in 2015, 4 massive 1,000-meter-long houses popped up side by side on the Gelendzhik embankment. The first went to manager Tatiana Katova, the second to Alexander Kov's father-in-law, the third to the palace's architect El Franco Cerrillo, and the fourth, the fanciest of them all, went to Bolat Zakharov's son. But the real estate empire doesn't stop there. Putin's holdings include a jaw-dropping 7,800 hectares of land, which features nearly 300 hectares of vineyards spread across 4 locations. His property portfolio is packed with chateaus, wineries, and oyster farms. Just near the palace, a company called Lazera Yagoda owns 29 hectares of vineyard land. Further out in the village of Divomorko, there are another 186 hectares dedicated to vineyards. Back in 2010, Lazera Yagoda received 32 hectares of this land as property, plus an additional 150 hectares on lease. This really shows how deeply entwined Putin's wealth is with these sprawling estates. The flow of cash for building Putin's Grand Palace is a wild story of complicated financial moves and hidden transactions. The funds for this lavish project kicked off with 3 companies that cleverly mixed their money and funneled it into a firm called Top Art Construction. This company, which was in charge of covering most of the bills for the palace, was run by a well-known player in Kremlin circles, Asia Lvovna Borisova. She's a key figure when it comes to Kremlin contracts, even though the company is officially registered under her son's name. Asia's company, UK Credo, is famous for big-ticket projects like restoring the Constantine Palace in Strelna and building and fixing up Putin's homes in Valai and Sochi. Over a few years, Borisova's 4 companies raked in more than 10 billion rubles, making her a major economic player in Gelendzhik, while keeping the palace running smoothly. In just 3 years, Transin Structures funneled a whopping 4.2 billion rubles into the account of the company that owns the palace. So how much did Putin's palace near Gelendzhik actually cost? That's a tricky question because properties as extravagant as this one, complete with rock-carved tunnels and underground hockey rinks, don't usually go up for sale. But we can make an estimate. The cost is likely a jaw-dropping 100 billion rubles, which is about $1.02 billion US. But wait, that's not all of Putin's empire. The other palaces we mentioned are just as impressive. In the heart of Moscow, the Grand Kremlin Palace stands tall, a historic fortress that has symbolized Russian power for centuries. This sprawling complex covers around 27.5 hectares, that's about 68 acres, and is surrounded by a sturdy wall stretching nearly 2.2 kilometers, or about 1.4 miles. The fortress features 20 impressive towers, showcasing its rich history. The Kremlin isn't just one building, it's a collection of important structures. Among the most notable is the Grand Kremlin Palace, built between 1837 and 1849. Originally intended to be the home of Russian czars, it now serves as the official residence and office of President Vladimir Putin. The palace is famous for its luxurious design and ornate interiors that reflect its imperial heritage. Inside the Kremlin, several stunning cathedrals add to the historical grandeur, with the Assumption Cathedral being a standout. This prominent church was the main place of worship for Russian czars and hosted many key ceremonies, including the coronations of the czars themselves. Another important structure in the Kremlin is the Ivan the Great Bell Tower, which reaches a height of 81 meters, or 266 feet, making it one of the tallest buildings in the complex. Historically, the Kremlin has been at the heart of Russian power, starting as the seat of the Grand Duchy of Moscow and later becoming the center of the Russian Empire. During the Soviet era, it was the hub of Soviet governance, and today it still serves as the official residence and workplace of the Russian president. The Kremlin's walls have seen some pretty significant events, like the Bolshevik Revolution in 1917. When it comes to security, the Kremlin is top-notch. The Federal Protective Service of Russia handles all the security measures, making sure that access is tightly controlled. Only a limited number of guided tours and official visits are allowed, which makes it one of the most secure spots in Russia. Overall, the Kremlin is more than just a historic monument. It's a symbol of Russia's rich history and ongoing political importance. Its stunning architecture and deep-rooted history make it an iconic emblem of Russian identity and power. Now, about the third palace. It's been making headlines recently because of Ukraine. So what's the scoop? Well, a Ukrainian drone attack took out an ammunition depot in the western Russian region of Tver. A source from the Ukrainian security service shared this juicy bit of info with CNN. Videos popping up on social media, which CNN has verified, show loud explosions and several buildings in the depot ablaze. The governor, Igor Rynin, even ordered a partial evacuation to get the fires under control, according to posts on the local government's official Telegram channel. The drones specifically targeted a warehouse run by the Russian Defense Ministry, where tactical missile systems, aerial bombs, and artillery were stored. Thankfully, Russian state news agency TASS reports that no civilians were injured in the drone attack. The Ukrainian security source told CNN that these types of attacks are part of a strategic plan to diminish Russia's missile capabilities. Plans for more attacks on similar Russian military sites are in the works. Ukraine has been launching airstrikes deep into Russian territory and is also ramping up efforts to get approval from its Western allies to use longer-range missiles for deeper strikes within Russia. Behind the scenes, it's likely that this approval has already been given. These strikes have put Russia on high alert, and one of the actions they've taken in response is to beef up security for Putin. Putin's palace on Lake Valai, often called Valai Palace, is a swanky pad located on a private island in the stunning Valai Hills, about 300 km northwest of Moscow. This impressive estate sprawls over 17 hectares, or 42 acres, and is right on the shore of Lake Valai, which is famous for its serene and picturesque surroundings. The palace itself is quite the sight, boasting grand architecture that blends traditional Russian style with modern luxury. Inside, you'll find high ceilings, ornate chandeliers, and stylish furnishings that really set the mood. The estate also features a private pier for easy access to the lake and beautifully manicured gardens that add to its charm. Security at Valai Palace is super tight, with heightened air defense systems and advanced security measures in place. The whole area is heavily guarded, ensuring that the palace remains private and secure. This palace has drawn a lot of attention and controversy over the years. Investigations and reports have raised eyebrows about the palace's hefty price tag, with estimates suggesting it cost hundreds of millions of dollars. Naturally, this has sparked concerns about potential corruption. Another palace that has raised questions about shady connections is the Grand Palace of Marbella, often dubbed Putin's Palace in Marbella. This extravagant property is nestled in the upscale area of Marbella on Spain's Costa del Sol. Covering about 30,000 square meters, or 7.4 acres, it boasts expansive gardens, private pools, and all the fancy amenities you could imagine. Set in a region known for its wealthy residents and breathtaking views, this Marbella Palace is rumored to be linked to Russian elite figures. It's known for its opulence and sophistication, featuring a grand main residence with tons of rooms, including multiple bedrooms, spacious living areas, and lavish dining spaces. The design has a Mediterranean flair, mixing classical architecture with modern luxury. The property is surrounded by high walls and has top-notch security to keep it private and safe. Investigations have suggested that the estate might be connected to Russian oligarchs and possibly to Putin's close associates. The extravagant nature of the palace, valued in the tens of millions of euros, has raised further questions about potential corruption and illicit wealth. With security measures that include advanced surveillance systems and restricted access, the Marbella Palace is as secure as it is luxurious. However, the real story behind these palaces might always remain a mystery, and it's not hard to see why.